Hi guys, and welcome to this tutorial on how to bomb stuff in Arma 3. So let's fire up the editor and make a quick mission to illustrate just how it can be done. First, let's put down our jet. In this case, I'm choosing the regular Black Wasp, but any bomb-dropping jet will do. Let's put it at the edge of the map so we have some time to prepare until we reach the target. This is just so we won't waste time on takeoff and navigation, so we can focus on the actual target acquisition and bombing. Note that the first unit you put down is always the player unit, but that can be changed in the unit attributes afterwards if you mess it up. Then we have to make sure that the jet is actually flying. If not, the mission will be rather short. In order to fly, the plane needs to be over a certain threshold altitude. But Bohemia Interactive has been kind enough to include a shortcut just for this purpose. Just right-click the jet and choose Transform and move to flight altitude. Personally, I like it a little higher for bombing though, so I'll manually edit it by going into the attributes for the jet. Then I'm going to go ahead and set the Z height to around 700 in the position field under Object Transformation. Then let's arm the jet pylons. First click on Mirror, since it'll have the same loadout on both sides. It doesn't matter if you leave the air-to-air missiles in, but just so nobody gets confused, I'll leave them out this time. Then just plop your GBUs in, and that's that. Then let's put down a target. Any target will do, but for this tutorial, let's just add a Varsuk tank from the Opfer team, so we need less firepower to kill it, while we're still keeping it a little bit of a challenge. Then let's choose the jet again and make a waypoint to the tank so we don't waste any time searching for it. Normally I wouldn't do this for a regular mission since searching for your target is kind of part of the fun, but for the sake of brevity we'll do it for this tutorial. Make sure you've chosen your jet, then hold down Shift and right-click close to your target, like so. Then let's right-click the waypoint and edit the attributes and change the waypoint type to Destroy so we know what it's for. When that's done, connect it to the target. Waypoints are a great way to make your AI units move and do stuff on the map, as well as providing hints for actual players, but more on that in another tutorial. For a little easier targeting, let's also plop down a friendly JTAC in the vicinity of the tank. So let's search that up. He'll automatically pull out his laser designator and paint the tank for us once he sees it. Let's put him about 2 clicks away so we don't accidentally nuke him. Then press Shift and drag your mouse from the JTAC and to your target so your soldier is facing the tank. If you place him behind the tank won't notice him. But if you really want to make sure, then just remove all the tank's ammo. You can also remove its gunner and commander for that purpose, but then you won't see the reaction of the crew when doing your run. However, there's also a third option. Instead, let's just edit the JTAC's attributes and his special states. Then we can set him to Invincible and Invisible just in case. He's just there to provide extra targeting after all. Let's turn up his skill too to make sure he laces the tank correctly for us. Now you don't really have to do this next part to make it work, but I like to edit the electronics and sensors just to make sure. So let's right-click the JTAC and set Data Link Send to True to make sure it sends the designator data. Normally, I'd turn on Data Link Position 2 so he'd also show up on the radar, but since he's invulnerable, this isn't strictly necessary. Finally, make sure to also right-click your jet and set its Data Link Receive to True and set it to Active. And now we're ready to go, so let's run the mission. Okay, so as we're flying, the first thing we want to get acquainted with is the weapon selectors. You can of course press F to change between weapons, but often that is also bound to flares, and then this happens. Which is cool and all, but probably not what you intended. So instead, just use the numbers on your keyboard. In this case, number 1 is the minigun, and number 4 are the air-to-ground pylons, including the targeting pod. Just toggle the 4 key until you get your weapon of choice. Let's choose GBU for now. The next thing you want to familiarize yourself with is the targeting pod. So hold down left control while you right-click your mouse to get into it. You should then see a big cross and a small cross in front of you. The big cross is your viewfinder, and the small cross is the bomb reticle. The viewfinder has two modes, regular and area lock. In the regular mode, the camera just glides over the landscape, but when you find a target, that makes it pretty hard to track it on the ground. So if you want to do that, like you do, then hold left control and hit T. This will give you the area lock mode. As you can see, this makes it much easier to keep ground targets within your view. Now just press plus and minus to zoom in and out. And if you have extra mouse keys, like I do, they may also be bound to the zoom. Now if you switch to your laser by toggling the 4 key, you can simply click your left mouse button to lace. As you can't see the laser in daylight, there's a handy dandy red icon when it's activated. It is visible in the other view modes though, which is found by hitting N until you've gone through them all. To go back to the regular gliding view, simply hit Ctrl and T again to exit area lock. And to go back to the cockpit view, simply right-click your mouse or press Enter. Back in the cockpit, the bomb sight looks a little bit different when you have a GBU selected. From the glide path indicator, you'll see a reticle that goes down to a ring with a dot. The ring is for guidance, and the dot represents where the bomb will hit when you release it, within some margin of error. The idea is that you line your target up with the reticle and then let the ring slide closer and closer to the target. When the dot is over your target, then hit your left mouse button to release your payload. This way you can get pretty close with your bombs even though you don't use laser guidance. At least as long as you fly straight and level. However, when you make use of either a JTAC or your own laser, you will unravel the true power of the surgical strike. So let's do that now. This time, we don't need to use our own laser, since we have our friendly JTAC soldier lacing the tank from below. However, even though the target may show up on our HUD, you have to be within range to target it. The first place you'll probably see your target is as a dot on your passive radar to the right. When you're close enough, you can press R to acquire the target and T to lace it. Also note that when you're trying to get a lock on a JTAC lace, you have to fly towards the target in roughly the same direction as the soldier is looking. You can start lining up your bomb run long before you get a lock, however. So while you're trying to lock on, just make sure the reticle is over the target and that your bomb sight is sliding closer and closer to it. Also make sure that you fly straight and level so that the onboard computer can accurately calculate the arc of the bomb. Depending on the type of bomb you have, you'll either get a diamond lock-on that beeps when it's time to release it, or you'll just get a square. In the latter case, you'll have to be a little bit more attentive, but other than that, the release is pretty similar. With your bomb selected, just press the left mouse button when it's time to release your payload, like so. Bombs away. You can also release bombs from within the targeting pod. Just hold your left control key down while you right-click your mouse to get back into it. You should already be lined up with the target before you do this, but even when you're in bomb view, you can still pilot your jet. If you're zoomed all the way in, the small square will travel way too quickly for you to react in time, so when you're done aiming, press minus and zoom out to get a better situational awareness. Then release your bomb when the small square crosses your target. And that's that. Now you should be ready to make your own missions. Happy bombing!